This lunar eclipse in Sagittarius marks a collective theme that will be brought forth pivotally for the next 18 months. This karmic theme pertains to how different relationships are going to have to be navigated moving forward. And it asks for a new way of emotionally integrating the crisis around us. If you are excited to dive into what we can all expect from this lunar eclipse in Sagittarius, make sure that you like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you are always up to date with what the stars have in store for you. Hi, I'm Maren. I am a professional astrologer, current philosophy student, and witch proudly out of the broom closet. I combine traditional Hellenistic astrological techniques with modern psychological counseling dynamics in order to provide grounded spiritual guidance. By the way, this video is brought to you by Rashi Collective. Rashi is my online platform connecting spiritual practitioners with their ideal clients. It's basically like a spiritual Yelp service. So if you are looking for a place to post your services online, whether you are an astrologer, a tarot reader, or any kind of healer, or someone interested in looking for those services, you can check out the link below to get that all set up. We would love to have you join the community and join this space to hold space. And if you have not already seen your June 2020 forecast based on your rising sign, the full playlist will be linked below so you know exactly where this lunation is taking place for you. I will link the June 2020 rising sign videos and the overall 2020 rising sign videos if you have not seen what 2020 is going to bring for the rest half of the year. So this particular lunation is a lunar eclipse, which means that it is a full moon, but it's basically a full moon on steroids because it is near the nodal axis of the moon. It's happening in Sagittarius, moon in Sag, sun in Gemini on Friday, June 5th at 3:12 p.m. Eastern Time. So this is the first eclipse cycle that we've had in 18 years where the north node is now in Gemini and the south node is in Sagittarius, and this is the first lunation of that cycle. There are full videos. I made a whole playlist on what the nodes of the moon mean and signify and their astronomy linked down below that you can check out after this video to better understand what the energetics mean behind what I'm talking about when I say nodes of the moon. So the north node in Gemini, let's just run through quickly, what that alignment means. That's a collective inflation of mercurial matters. It's the yang home of Mercury. It's Mercury's double-bodied yang sign, and it marks the transition into summer. There's an emphasis on innovation, socializing, learning, classroom dynamics, and assimilating perceptions. Also, we can be thinking more about conversational trends and social norms. And just side note, I think it's funny that with the North Node in Gemini, we're like reevaluating that we can't really shake hands anymore. So we're thinking about greetings and Gemini rules the hands, but tangent. And this placement makes a lot of sense given the current context of emphasizing technological social connections. Astrology is such an amazing mirror, isn't it? Rahu, also known as the north node of the moon, can have us insatiably driven towards over-dramatizing wherever it's at. So we can just be a little wary right now of having so much ideological discourse that it emotionally tires us. Whereas on the opposite side, because we can never separate the north and south node, they are always together, the south node is in Sagittarius, offering a collective deflation of Jupiterian matters. This is the yang home of Jupiter. It's double-bodied yang home, representing the descent into the transition of wintertime. This combination reflects a de-emphasis on the old or outdated philosophical paradigms. We're letting go of the thought structures which may be wasteful energetically to ponder. And this is kind of morbid, but quite literally, a lot of people who have really tightly held conservative values, that's the generation dying out right now. I think we can look at that represented by the South Node. And we're literally having to give up ways of living and conceptualizing our place in exploring the world that infringe on the disadvantage or already make even more so a difficult time for those who are at risk. We're having to really think about how abundance spans with everyone. It can't be contained. Ketu can have us overly mystified or not caring about that area of life. So watch out for high levels of narcissistic condemnation and like de-emphasis on any beliefs at all, to the point of existential crisis around goal setting and saying like, fuck it, there's no point. Like, just watch for that kind of thing with the South Node in Sag. If you do want a full video on the North Node in Gemini and the South Node in Sag, and I haven't decided to do one before uploading this video, let me know down below if that's something you would be interested in. I would love to dive into it and talk about what the collective forecast for the next 18 months with that placement would be. So like I said, lunar eclipses are basically full moons on steroids. They technically are full moons, but they're amplified because the culmination of the lunar cycle is joined by the karmic emphasis of the nodes of the moon. And eclipses in particular demonstrate that this new beginning is spanning 6 months. Like, instead of the whole chapter being over 6 months, like full and new moons generally indicate, this is like the beginning of this is going to be the next 6 months. This is taking place at 15 degrees of Gemini for the sun and 15 degrees of Sagittarius for the moon. The sun is also conjunct Venus retrograde in Gemini, which is interesting because Venus is then under the sun's beams within 3 degrees, indicating that it is combust, it is blinded, and what it signifies is made secret. The fact that this is separating because Venus is retrograding even further away after having crossed the sun is indicating that because of the separation, this is a decision that was made in secret around relationships or maybe in private, and it's now manifesting its consequences. It's co-present, aka in the same sign as Rahu, the north node of the moon, but it's not super close. So it's more so marking the beginning of thoughts around technological etiquette and that impact on relationships and how social rules are going to have to modify to deal with this new trend. This is happening in the second decan of Gemini, which is correspondent to the Nine of Swords tarot card, also called the Lord of Cruelty. It can deal with mental cruelty, like aggressive thoughts, and it's ruled actually by Mars. Even though Gemini is a Mercury-ruled sign, we can think of the tarot card in the corresponding third of Gemini as having a bit of Martian rulership. There is an ability to cut others' thought structures and place in our minds out. Hard truths to swallow are being revealed, but we aren't necessarily in a place to accept those yet. The truth might be sinking in now about a relationship decision that was made privately recently. It's temporary and still unpleasant, and it's an invitation to look at the duality inherent in everything, especially yourself, not just in this one-to-one relationship. The Sun and Venus in Gemini are ruled by Mercury, which is in Cancer, and Mercury in Cancer means that Mercury is communicating and doing its little vocal performance through the sign, the lens of the moon. There's an encouraging, comforting, and nurturing tendency to the Mercury in Cancer, and there's a soft-spoken baseline because Cancer likes to stay safe, but it can be easily emotionally provoked and led to defensive measures. There is a nice little Mercury-Uranus sextile to encourage opportunity or novel ways of getting our emotions across in healthy communication. And that might just be the push that we need to open and speak about what we're going through instead of mentally filing it all away. That contrasts to the moon in the second decan of Sagittarius, corresponding to the Nine of Wands, which, even though Sagittarius is Jupiter ruled, this decan of Sagittarius in the middle has a bit of moon influence. The moon indicating this emotional vulnerability that's in need of protecting when we're exploring in the Sagittarian way, and it indicates kind of a gathering of the troops preparing to stick to our guns and assimilate emotional protection. The moon is co-present with, but not super close to Ketu, the south node of the moon. So this is the beginning of a trend around emotional dissociation, which is not necessarily unhealthy, but just this emotional distancing around dealing with the emotional and information overload. Like, we have to take some time to distance ourselves with so much closeness to crisis. And mentally, we're now facing the consequences of a decision made around values, relationships, or structures of ideological comfort in our lives. Emotionally, we're preparing to find the path of least resistance around that. And some part of that path of least resistance might mean understanding that for now we need to emotionally distance in order to let the waters settle a bit. The moon is in Jupiter's sign since Jupiter rules Sagittarius, and to say the least, Jupiter is in a pretty intense position right now. Basically, our collective emotional resources are represented by Jupiter because Jupiter is the landlord of Sagittarius. Jupiter is at fall in Capricorn, conjunct Pluto, applying within 2 degrees here. There's a lack of fertile ground for comforting us, and instead there's a volcanic crisis available as the foundation to build upon. This further reinforces the tendency right now to intellectualize what's happening instead of feel what's happening. And it's okay to contemplate and wait to integrate. There's nothing inherently wrong with a healthy amount of space to breathe. Just make sure that you are not hoarding information instead of dealing with emotions. Like, make sure that you are actually aware of the fact that you are not emotionally integrating right now if you choose to do so. The sun and the moon are also exactly square Mars in Pisces, which is applying to conjoin Neptune. Mars in Pisces is also under the rulership of Jupiter in that amazing position, kidding, because Jupiter rules Pisces. And Mars in Pisces already, not to mention the dramatization given by Jupiter's rulership right now, it can indicate spiritual martyr tendencies and a visionary leader. Mars severs, and Pisces inherently deals with the expansion of emotional oneness. So there could be a severing of ideas that is helpful in cutting away of superfluous philosophies or ideologies that don't support our warriorship towards oneness. There could be a really beautiful opportunity here to also make art with deliberate movement. So things like yoga, bodywork, or Reiki could be really valuable around this time to emotionally release what is not serving you. Mars-Neptune can also be utterly confused around motivation or competition. I say this as someone with Mars opposite Neptune in the birth chart. Like, I don't know what motivation or competition really is. It just seems like everything is motivating in a competition, and so like I don't really know what to choose, and then it just turns into a fog. This is a similar dynamic right now where we might feel like everyone is out to get us, and so there's decision paralysis. There is a deer in the headlights quality that I like to talk about with Mars-Neptune. And with that present right now, it's okay to not know what directly to do. Like, literally, this is a 6-month dilemma that is a lesson right now. And inaction doesn't have to mean dissociation. It can simply mean incubating of the dynamics. Mars is therefore resting at the bending of the nodes, or the skipped step, because it is in the sign in between the nodal axis points. There's an important integration or reminder of being mindful about spiritual topics right now. We need to dive into the underlying spiritual, philosophical issues at hand. We can't just deal with the soul surface level symptoms. Kind of like, are we just going to pass stimulus check after stimulus check and reform after reform? Or are we going to deal with the actual ideological inequalities present in certain identities right now? The Jupiter-Pluto conjunction, which is a year-long dynamic, I have a video on Jupiter in Cap right here that you can watch about the Jupiter-Pluto shit show kind of situation cute going on right now. It's applying via retrograde right now. So Jupiter and Pluto are having this dance where they're applying, they come together, they separate, they reapply. Right now they're reapplying via retrograde. So this is eruption around a reversal. Consequences around the limited social distancing measures that some states and some areas of the world might have let go of are coming to light. And like I've spoken in previous videos, the game of the hammer of the restrictions and the dance of going back and forth with them as we grapple with easing up over time is happening in those places that might have gone too far. And that's my prediction, and also like what I basically see happening, because I'm filming this in late April, because the way that I do these is like I film them at the tail end of the month before basically, or the 2 months before. And so like who the fuck knows what's gonna happen through all of May when this is sitting in my watch later or in my private videos. But you know, I'm just gonna flat out call that basically for this one. I've talked about it in my coronavirus videos. Basically I'm pretty predictive with that. And Jupiter-Pluto retrograde applying is like the culmination of a mortality-based crisis due to reversal. Like, it's pretty clear cut that that's what's happening, and people also might be gearing up to re-separate from their loved ones again after a bit of a break from that distancing. At its core, This is going to be a collective culmination of a massive descent into the Sagittarian exploration as the karmic themes that are present for this next 18 months. Our outlooks are requiring massive ideological change because of the systemic crises, and it's our choice to proceed most emotionally healthily and most mentally efficiently given our personal matters. So with the astrology out of the way, let's finish up with a tarot and oracle deck card pull. I'm pulling from my Dark Angels tarot. We needed this for eclipse season coming up. So we have the Four of Wands, which can deal with an attachment to pleasure. It indicates a party or a celebration, like an initial one that might be taken too far. It's generally a good time where there's charisma present after getting somewhere. I think that this really is representing that we have come to a point of liking the little bit of freedom that we have, but we need to remember that this is a hammer and a dance that we're dealing with here, and we need not get attached to the first indications of a bit of a breakthrough right now. Lastly, let's pull a Witch's Wisdom Oracle deck card for a word of oracle advice. We have Samhain, death. Let's read from the book here on this. Through veil wise thin this very night, protection placed, no need for fright. Crone welcomes you and all you bring, wisdom awaits, now look within. This magic is worked with harm to none, so mote it be, there it is done. I'll read a bit about this, this is a bit long. Witch's wisdom, you have been avoiding death. Change is afoot, and you have been desperately clinging on to your old self, all of which you know too well for fear of losing your identity. You must understand that to die, the old will escalate you to where you truly desire to be. Time to let go, surrender, accept that death is never final. It's simply a portal to rebirthing the next glorious stage of the cycle of life. Death appears before you in the form of Samhain now, a time of connection, reflection, and journeying on those who have left this world for the other to look where you have journeyed from and to during the year, the wheel of the year. The goddess in her triple form has become the crone, and you are invited to draw on her wisdom from deep within as she cradles you during the dark months to come. She will protect and guide you through this period of the dark night of the soul, and you will emerge wiser and more powerful than you could ever imagine. So witch's foresight. Let go of old patterns and behaviors, take risk, fears preventing your freedom, embrace your croning years and step into your wisdom. A death changes your outlook. Finally, Samhain revealed. This festival of the dead is when we honor our ancestors. The veil between the worlds of the dead and the living is at its thinnest. We celebrate death as a part of life as we journey into the dark night of the soul. This is the time to burn in the cauldron of Saridwen, our paper of regrets, embracing the dying of the old self and transforming into the next incarnation of the self in this life. This is a really synchronistic card to come up because Sagittarius season literally deals with that descent into darkness of the winter time of year. And this is a personal descent into a reanalysis of what is coming to bear as a result of decisions that we've made with those around us, and asking for us to take time to let go of what doesn't have a place in the new earth. So with that being said, check out Rashi down below if you're interested in receiving healing during this time. Check out my private consultations if you would like to hit me up for some guidance. I would love to read for you. Otherwise, like, subscribe, and let me know down below your feelings around this lunation in Sag coming up. Sending much love, and I will see you in the next one.
But there is one thing you're all